trickle in as they do. So welcome, this is the standards-based grading pilot, and we have some updates for this year that we wanted to share with you before our first report cards come out. First, I want to start, this meeting is being recorded and will be viewable by the public eventually. You will be muted through the meeting, so you shouldn't have to worry about being recorded, but I just wanted to let you know. And I will share this recording with the principals once it's finished so that they can share it out to the rest of the schools if they choose. In the meeting, the chat box is turned off for now. I will turn it on when we get to the Q&A portion at the end of the meeting. And you are not able to unmute, so our communication should be through the chat box when we get to that point. And I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Howie Marshall. I am the coordinator of the report card committee and of the current pilot at our 4 schools. I have been with the Pittsfield Public Schools now for just over 9 years. I spent the last 5 years teaching high school history at Pittsfield High School. And this year I am working with the curriculum department to support our teachers, families, and students in remote learning. So I'm mostly responsible for the training around Canvas and Zoom, but I also work on the report card as well. And tonight I want to do a couple things. First, I'm going to talk about what is the pilot overall, for those of you that might not be familiar with that terminology. I want to look at some of our current challenges in this year. I'll give you a brief overview of standards-based grading for those of you that might be new to this, either new to the school or haven't heard of it before. And then the most important thing is I want to talk about the changes for this year. So those of you that have been with us in the earlier years, we did make some significant changes this year that have been communicated to you, but I wanted to review those this way so that you had a clear understanding and an opportunity to ask questions. So first, our pilot schools are Allendale, Capeless, Morningside, and Williams. If you have students at other schools, they are not part of the pilot. They will get a traditional report card with grades out of 100%, traditional grades A, B, C, D, etc. If you have students that are in the virtual academy, they are not in the pilot. So even if your student is, their home school is at Williams, if you have chosen to enroll in the virtual academy, they're still going to get, excuse me, a traditional report card. And so this won't apply to those students. Even if they got one last year, this won't apply. They will stay on traditional grades. So only students who are currently attending Allendale, Capeless, Morningside, and Williams are pilot schools. And a pilot just means that we're trying something out. So within the school system, there's a lot of rules and regulations, policies that we have to follow. So in order to test run something, to see how it works, to develop it and improve it, we do what's called a pilot, where we'll run it for, it could be a very short period of time. This pilot is now in its 3rd year as we continue to refine and improve. And that's just official terminology that says we're trying this out, we're working out the kinks, and eventually we're hoping to roll it out to a larger group. The pilot started at Morningside 3 years ago. Last year we expanded to the other 3 schools, and this year is the 2nd year with all 4 schools. Again, with our hope that we can continue to expand this as we improve it to other elementary schools. So of course, there are some challenges this year. Hybrid learning is hard. It's hard for all of us. It is hard for administrators and teachers. It is hard for students. We acknowledge that. Students are making progress, but we're also playing catch up. So we know that we missed a significant amount of school. We were gone for a lot longer than a traditional summer break. And so our students are playing catch up. We know that. Canvas and PowerSchool do work together, but there's some technical challenges to that. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. And lastly, we've taken parent and teacher feedback to make the significant changes this year. So I know I keep saying the word significant. We made some changes to the program. All of that was entirely based on teacher and parent feedback. And I'll explain those as we go through them. All right, so just as a quick overview for those of you who, like I said, might be new to standards-based grading, rather than getting a grade on an assignment out of 100%, so if you took a math quiz and you got every question right, you'd get a 100%. In standards-based grading, we look at students' progress towards what is the goal for them in their learning. So, their goal was not to get 100 on that quiz. That's great. But the goal is that they had to learn to multiply. So how does the quiz measure their ability to multiply? And do we think that they can multiply yet? Have they met that target? Or are we working on it together to get them to the point where they can meet that standard? That's what we mean when we say standards-based grading. Of course, the state has established hundreds of standards. We have chosen a smaller number of those to report to you. You would be overwhelmed if you looked at basically the teacher to-do list of the things that we need to teach your student in the time that we have them. So we have narrowed that list down to what we think are the most important skills. And that list is based on a few factors. It's based on, first, what is the state test? What is MCAS going to test them on? That's clearly a skill. What do they need to know to be successful in the next grade level? So if you're in third grade going to fourth grade, what skills in third grade are the most important that you can be successful in fourth grade? And then lastly, what are the skills that are most important for them long term? So what skills do they need to know that will create a successful middle school, high school student, college student maybe, and even adult? That's what we look for. I really like that it promotes a growth mindset. So in a traditional grading system, students start out with a 100%. And then for every answer you get wrong, you lose points, right? We average all of that together. So if you didn't know the first time we quizzed you and then you learned more things and we quiz you again, we average those together. So if you got a 50 on the first quiz, even if you get 100 on the next quiz, the best you can do is a C at 75. In a standards-based system, we promote a growth mindset. On the first quiz, you did not know everything, and we know that. We've not finished teaching it yet. This is our checkpoint. So we would show that you are making progress. By the end, hopefully, you have met our standard. You've accomplished the goal that we set for you, and that is the grade that would be reported. We're only averaging the ones that are most recent that show that you've met the target. This system also matches our curriculum, what we're teaching in school, and the way that we're teaching it. Maybe a little bit less so this year with things being so crazy, but in an ideal world, the curriculum programs that you're using online or with your teachers are teaching you the standards. That's what they're doing. And they're set up in a specific way to do that. When you're taking online quizzes or your teacher is checking your learning, we're getting information that's based on standards, and they have to translate that into a grade out of 100%, which doesn't really make sense. This way, we're just sharing with you the information that we already have access to. And it matches teaching methods. So I know I see some students that are here on the call. Your teachers are putting you in groups. Again, maybe not so much this year, but maybe virtually in breakout groups or whatnot. But they're giving you assignments that are meeting your level. So when you take a quiz and do a check-in, last year you might have had a teaching table where the teacher has small groups come back to the table to practice a certain skill, or each group that goes through teacher table might do something different. That's all about learning the specific things that we want to measure here. All right. And lastly, it gives your students actionable feedback on their strengths and weaknesses. So I like the example of, if you got a B on something you wrote, how do you make it better? What would you do to make it better other than rewrite it and try to do a better job? Do you make it longer? Did you not use periods and commas correctly? Is your capitalization wrong? It's really unclear unless the teacher explains all of that to you. In a standards-based system, it's much clearer because you're going to get a grade on capitalization, punctuation, use of grammar, vocabulary. You're going to have separate scores on those, and you'll know, I don't need to improve my punctuation. I did very well in that. What I need to work on is my spelling, right? Maybe it was spelling that brought down the grade. So I appreciate that, and it provides parents and students with that actionable information on what you can do in a smaller chunk to improve your overall skills. Okay, and here's where we get to some of the changes for this year. So this is the short list, and I'll go into each of these in details, but essentially we have trimesters, letter grading, levels of proficiency, more information in PowerSchool, and new report cards. So first, our trimesters. In the past, we have used quarters at all grade levels. We found with this new grading system that first quarter just is not enough time for you to even learn enough to make sense, right? We needed more time. If the standard says you have to multiply, you're probably not going to learn to multiply in the first month of school. So we're giving your students more time to actually develop some skills that we feel we can measure with a little bit more accuracy. Again, understanding that this year is, the craziest one we've had in probably forever. Thank goodness for trimesters now, because if we had quarters, we would be grading even earlier. So report cards for elementary schools only will now be distributed in December, March, and June. Updated grades and progress can be viewed in PowerSchool between those report cards. Hopefully you're having communication from teachers, but that's where, that's the important marker for us. That's when the report card comes out, will be just those 3 now instead of 4. If you have other students in middle school and high school, they will still be on quarters. It's only elementary school that's using trimesters. I know it's confusing to switch the dates, but we felt it was the most beneficial thing we could do for our elementary schools. And the middle and high schools have different considerations, things like, applying to colleges and things. It's just easier for us to stick with quarters, but this made sense for our elementary folks. The second one is letter grading. So if you were with the pilot last year, we had a 1 through 4 system. It wasn't quite clear. 3 was the goal, but there were a lot of 4s going out there, and we weren't sure what 4 meant, because how could you do better than learn to multiply? Like, can you multiply really, really good, like better than everybody else? It didn't quite make sense for us. So we switched to a letter system. So it's not a 3 out of 4 anymore. It's M, P, or N. So you might see these in PowerSchool already. M means that you've met the goal. You've met the standard. Your student has done everything that we've asked. They are on track for the end of the year. A P means that they're progressing. So they're not quite there yet, but they're getting there. They need a little bit of catch up to stay on track with the rest of the class to meet the goal by the end of the year. And an N just means that they have not yet met the standard. So they've not quite made enough progress. They need a little bit of catching up. And in those cases, you'll probably hear from teachers on ways that we can support them to get them caught up. Like I said, last year we had 1 through 4, and you notice there's only 3 letters this year. We've removed the 4th level. Everything we heard from teachers and parents was that it just didn't make sense. If you have a 4, the 4 is naturally going to be the goal for everyone. That's how I am, that's how you are, that's how most people are. If you can get to 4, I want to be a 4. But 4 wasn't the goal. We only want students to get to 3. So we've removed the 4 because we don't think it's valid that students can exceed the standard. The goal for all students is to meet the standard. Once you've learned the skill, we check it off, awesome. Now, some teachers may choose to indicate in their comments, you might see in comments on the report card or in PowerSchool or even in communications with the teacher, that you have a student that's performing exceptionally well. They might be ahead of the class, or they might be doing problems that are a little more advanced than we would expect, and that's fine. We can communicate that, but it didn't make sense to us to have that on the report card available for everyone in all standards if that's not the goal. So we've set a new goal at that 3rd level, which is just meeting the standard. We're also now providing more information in PowerSchool than we have in the past. So last year and the year before, we had, like I said, a smaller list of standards that were available on the report card. We only had those ones in PowerSchool. So all of the other things that teachers were doing in their classroom to prepare for those standards, to get ready for those ones, to teach the smaller skills that build up to that, was being left out. It was available in some of the curriculum programs if you were looking there, or if you got reports from your teachers, but none of that was going into PowerSchool and being tracked. And honestly, a lot of our teachers felt like their work was not being reported, that they were working so hard and then they could only put 1 or 2 grades in PowerSchool. So what we've done is we've added everything into PowerSchool. They're not on the report card, and teachers don't have to use them, but they're available. So some of your teachers you might find putting in more grades, and they won't all be on the report card, but that's just to show that you are learning and making progress in a lot of areas, even if it's not on that piece of paper in December. And then lastly, we have new report cards. This one is so fantastic. If you've been with us, especially for some of those Morningside families in that first year, I know the report card was a disaster. It was not readable. It was confusing. It didn't even line up properly. So many mistakes were made. We've learned so many things in the last couple of years. So this year, the report card is a complete redesign from scratch. It is easier to read. It is better organized. It looks much better. It's still in development, so you might see some minor changes as we work out kinks throughout the year. But I've shown you, this is just a small corner of one report card. This is 5th grade, and you can see there's ELA. So it has the trimesters, nice gray boxes to indicate the subheadings. And then these are the standards that are graded in ELA in 5th grade. You can see that the one that I used as a sample, this student already has 2 grades of P. So they are making progress in these 2 standards for trimester 1. And that's just the nature of, the teacher had already put grades in when I printed this report card. But you'll see the report cards are much, much clearer and look so much better. So what can you see in Canvas and PowerSchool? Like I said, Canvas and PowerSchool do work together. It's not a perfect match. We're doing our best. Canvas should still be your daily to-do list of assignments. Where are you going for classwork, remote work, learning materials, etc.? That should all be in Canvas. Your teacher will be posting either a list of things to do, the programs that you should be accessing, the assignments to complete, etc. PowerSchool will be used to show any assignments that are using to grade the standards. So you might see more things in Canvas as teachers are trying to get you ready to assess your learning and to show what you know. But PowerSchool will only show the ones that are being used to grade. And just because of the way they work together, you might see some number scores in PowerSchool. You might even see zeros in Canvas or PowerSchool. That's just the way they work. Canvas doesn't really allow us to do standards-based grading very easily in a way that communicates back to PowerSchool. So some teachers, for example, are marking work complete. They're saying that you did it. And then they're giving you, it might just be a default of 0 showing that it was turned in, or they might pick another number like could be worth 10 points or 2 points. And that's just the way Canvas works. We can't have it collected or turned in without giving it a number. Some might show 100. Again, it might not mean that they got 100 on the assignment or on the standard. It just means that it was collected, recognized by the teacher. In PowerSchool, again, you might see some assignment grades. We'd ideally not show those, but again, the link between Canvas and PowerSchool, that's just the way it works. What you want to do is if you're in PowerSchool, there should be a tab on your student screen for standard grading. When you click on that, you will see the list of standards and any grades that have been entered for that. That's really what you want, where you want to look, is to go into PowerSchool and click on that standards tab to see that. Okay. Those are our changes for this year. I know I promised you an hour-long meeting, but I'm going to open it up to Q&A now. The chat box is open for questions. I will do my best to answer as many as I can. There are some things I can't answer. I might not be able to answer on the call now, but feel free to type in any questions and I will get to them as best I can, or feel free to hop off. And I appreciate everyone. Thank you for coming. You can reach out to me individually at my email at hmarshall@pittsfield.net. Or like I said, I will stay on here as long as you have questions. So there's 2 places you'll see grades. I would say for your standards grades, you definitely want to log into PowerSchool. So if you go to PowerSchool, you should have access to that as a parent. If not, we can get you in touch with the technology office to get you access again. But when you log into PowerSchool, right on the front page, there should be a tab that says standards grading. If your kids are not at one of these 4 schools, then they have traditional grades that would be both in Canvas and in PowerSchool. You should see regular grades for assignments in Canvas and PowerSchool at the other elementary schools. Okay. I would say, again, if you are having trouble getting to PowerSchool, email me and I will forward it on to the person in our office who handles parent access. It's hmarshall@pittsfield.net. Casey, I see your question. I would have to look into that off camera. I can check into that. Allendale does have standards-based grading and they should have access to that, but I can look into that after we're off the call and off the recording. So yes, if your student is attending the virtual academy, regardless of their homeschool, regardless of where their teacher worked last year. They are they have the traditional, the regular report card of 0 to 100, A, B, C, D. The grades should be showing in the PowerSchool parent app. Again, I'd have to look into that more specifically, but I have seen screenshots that it's available. There might be, again, a tab or an option you have to click to get to that, but I can look into that again offline. Again, I'll wait a couple minutes in case anyone's still typing, but you're free to hop off if you'd like, or you can wait to see if there are other questions.